Hello, everyone. Welcome to this online course delivered by Equate Scotland. We are delighted to be delivering this course in partnership with Skills Development Scotland. The course will cover different aspects of the business and moral case for embedding ED&I in practice, what the common pitfalls are within recruitment processes, and how they can be addressed to enhance inclusive recruitment measures, and what are the other measures to consider to embed inclusive practices within the organization. For information, Equate Scotland is the national expert in Scotland for gender equality in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, maths, built, and natural environment. Established in 2006, we encourage a universal approach to progressing gender equality within the STEM pipeline. We work with companies and organizations of all sizes across the private sector, as well as colleges, universities, public and third sector organizations. Our industry partners share our vision for a fairer, more inclusive, and diverse STEM sector in Scotland. Before we dive in, I'd like to highlight that even though the focus of this course is on inclusive recruitment practices for small, medium enterprises, we will also cover other areas that are critical to enhance our understanding of the context in which the organization is recruiting. We will approach this topic from an equality, diversity, and inclusion perspective, and therefore will explain some of the key terminology and concepts that businesses need to be aware of. This course is split into three main areas. First is why equality, diversity, inclusion matters. Second is inclusive recruitment practices, and the third is ED&I, which is ED&I beyond recruitment. This video we'll be focusing on the first part, which is the business, legal, and moral case for ED&I, the key terminology and concept one needs to be aware of, and develop an understanding of the ED&I requirements within the Scottish SME market. To create equitable, diverse, and inclusive workplace environments, the responsibilities extend far beyond the minimum need to do basis. Embedding ED&I considerations into workplace practices is underpinned, in our view, by the three pillars of moral, legal, and business drivers. The moral case for ED&I is to create an equitable working environment for individuals, irrespective of which socioeconomic background, gender, or race they belong to, where differences and/or intersections of different protected characteristics are recognized and supported. For a values-driven organization, this is based on creating an intrinsic value of fairness. Within a wider ecosystem, businesses have a moral obligation to reflect the diversity of society within their own ranks. We all benefit from a more equal society when there's an overwhelming evidence that greater equality benefits all. The legal case is underpinned by the Equality Act 2010. The Equality Act 2010 legally protects people from discrimination in the workplace and in wider society. The characteristics that are protected by the Equality Act 2010 are age, gender reassignment, disability, pregnancy and maternity, marriage and civil partnership, religion or belief, race, sexual orientation, and sex. It replaces previous anti-discrimination laws with a single act, making the law easier to understand and strengthening protection in some situations. It sets out the different ways in which it's unlawful to treat someone. Unlawful treatment. In this area, we'll be covering four forms of unlawful treatment. The first is direct discrimination. Direct discrimination is treating someone less favorably due to a specific characteristic, and it can also be associative or perceptive. Indirect discrimination is usually less obvious than direct discrimination, and it isn't usually intended as the rule is all applied to all, but it still has the effect of putting someone with a protected characteristic at a disadvantage that cannot be justified. Harassment is defined as unwanted conduct relating to a protected characteristic. It may also have the purpose or effect of violating a person's dignity or creating an intimidating or hostile environment. Victimization occurs when someone is treated less favorably because they made or supported a complaint of discrimination. Here are some examples of how conscious and unconscious unlawful treatment can be meted out in the workplace or experienced. Under the section of conscious, we look at sexism, An example of which is not taking a meeting with the CEO of an organization because she's a woman. An example of racism would be one would not employ anyone from a particular country because the perception is they're untrustworthy. An example of ageism would be deciding not to recruit someone over 50 as you assume that they won't be able to pick up new skills. Example of conscious disablism would be using words like schizophrenic or bipolar as insults when you know there are mental health conditions. On the other side, unconscious sexism, an example of that would be assuming that the CEO of an organization is a man. An example of unconscious racism is in a group meeting and an external person assumes that the only black colleague in the room has an administrative role. Unconscious ageism is deciding not to recruit a person over 50 because they just don't fit and not assessing that individual further. And unconscious disablism is assuming someone who's physically visibly able should not be using a disabled parking spot or have a blue badge, implying that disability has to be visible. So why is this relevant now? There are legal considerations and organized need to consider the legal aspects of implementing ED&I measures for not only to recognize and respect the protections provided by the law, but also ensure that they're not making themselves legally liable by not tackling unlawful behaviors in the workplace, as potentially legal challenges can be brought in through a tribunal against organizations if they are not embedding these practices. Organizations can also be held responsible for actions of their employees if it can be demonstrated that the employer did not act to prevent these actions. And it is the general duty of these organizations, particularly public bodies, to proactively promote equality of opportunity and to tackle discrimination and harassment. So the business case. There is evidence that diversity and inclusion is good for business. And some of the areas we see this impacting are, especially within the team environment, you see enhanced creativity and innovation. There's diversity of thought, which leads to co-creation, which then goes beyond ideas and suggestions of individuals might have an affinity for. It also leads to better decision making, where diverse teams are less likely to groupthink and are inclined to consider a wider range of options. And it also leads to improved staff engagement, where inclusive workplaces foster a sense of belonging, which in turn boosts staff engagement. And engaged employees are more productive, loyal, and contribute positively to an organization's culture. This is an example of McKinsey research. The link to the research is at the bottom of the slide. And the research looked at the financial results of companies as a benchmark of success, and where this metric was weighed against indicators such as the gender and ethnicity composition of the top management of the boards and company. The findings were clear. Companies in the top quartile for racial and ethnic diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above their respective national industry medians. Companies in the top quartile for gender diversity are 15% more likely to have financial returns above their respective national industry medians. The world is becoming global, with more people living, working, and moving to different areas and countries. However, organizations may not reflect this diversity, which is already there in our societies. To keep abreast with all the positive changes happening globally and locally in Scotland, there needs to be an ecosystem that supports innovation, encouraging ideas and problem solving skills. All of these are provided by a diverse workforce, where profits are not just the bottom line. It is also about making sure we can reflect the clients and public that our industry serve, but also meet the needs of the customers. For example, we were to look at the housing sector. Housing is a universal need. The requirements of housing differs depending on people's unique circumstances. So having a workforce which understands this and the various diverse needs of the people is crucial. So what are the benefits of diverse workforce? Diverse workforce helps companies increase their customer base. Diverse teams are more innovative and creative. They are faster at decision making and better at problem solving. They're also better at communicating and at teamwork, and there's less conflict. Having a diverse workforce is also beneficial for staff morale and motivation by making employees feel included and welcome. Companies with more diverse top teams are also top financial performers. So, what would happen if you didn't have diversity and inclusion in workplaces? So, these examples have been extracted from a book called Invisible Women, which basically exposes the data bias in a world designed for men. And it's written by Callan Perez. In the first example is the Apple Health app. In 2013, Apple released the Apple Health app, the white square with the heart, which is marketed as the all singing, all dancing, all inclusive app that could track every aspect of your well being: cholesterol, mental health, sleep patterns, steps, etc. But it had no way to track something that affects up to 51% of the population, and to not include that as a key part of well being, which was periods. It shows the fact that they were not thinking of women, or there weren't any women in the room when they were developing, or that the women in the room did not feel in sufficient numbers or comfortable enough to voice. We also know that Silicon Valley is notoriously male dominated. The story went viral very quickly, and it caused both reputational and financial damage, as they had to release an update earlier than scheduled. And this part of their all singing, all dancing health app was only made available in 2019. Another example Carolyn Perez speaks of is AI facial recognition. It is accurate 99% of the times if you're a white man. Gender has been misidentified in up to 7% of lighter skinned females in a study where they looked at a set of 296 photographs. Gender was misidentified in 35% of darker skinned females in a set of 271 photographs. We'll now look at some key terminology and concepts which are in reference to equality, diversity, and inclusion. The first is equality, which is about treating everyone fairly, giving everyone a fair chance, and an equal opportunity to make the most of their lives and talents, regardless of attributes such as where they're born, what they believe in, their sexuality, or what they look like. Diversity goes beyond giving everyone equal opportunities and encourages us to not simply tolerate differences or pretend they don't exist, but rather to recognize how differences can be beneficial to society in general and the workplace. Whereas inclusion is the culture in which a mix of people can come to work and feel comfortable and confident to be themselves. Inclusion also ensures that everyone feels valued and, importantly, adds value. Equality versus equity. Equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and therefore allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. Equality is different from equity. In the example on screen, we can see that the three individuals are all different heights, but are all reaching for the same fruit from the tree for fruit from the same tree. In the illustration on the left, the three individuals have all been given the same size of box to stand on in an attempt at equal resource allocation. However, as we can see, only the tall person in there is able to reach the fruit. Meanwhile, the shortest person is nowhere near. In the example on the right, the three individuals are all given a different size of box to ensure they are ultimately able to grab the fruit. Reasonable adjustments. Well, these are changes an employer makes to remove or reduce a disadvantage related to someone's disability. They are specific to a person and can cover any area of work. It's not enough for employers to provide disabled people with the same working conditions as non-disabled people. Employers must make reasonable adjustments by law. Positive action and positive discrimination. Positive action is when an organization voluntarily takes steps to help or encourage certain groups of people with different training with needs, or who are disadvantaged in some way, to access work or training. Positive discrimination means treating one person more favorably than another on the grounds of that individual's protected characteristics. A few things to note here, as there's always sometimes confusion around the two terms. The first is that positive discrimination is unlawful, but positive action isn't. You can choose to hire candidates from underrepresented groups if they're qualified as other applicants. You're not allowed to recruit a person purely based on their protected characteristic. It is unlawful to set quotas to recruit or promote a specific number of people with particular characteristics. Bias. A bias is is an inclination, predisposition, or prejudice towards or away from something. Unconscious bias is a bias that happens automatically and is triggered by our brains making quick judgments and assessments of people and situations. Stereotypes are widely held beliefs and assumptions that we hold about particular groups based on age, gender, ethnicity, and ability, and as such ignores people's individuality. Unconscious biases are influenced by our background and cultural environment and personal experiences. It's not innate and it is learned behavior. Therefore, we can learn alternatives and create different automatic responses. This is something we'll be talking about in detail, especially when talking about inclusive recruitment. As we know, unconscious bias can impact different stages of the recruitment process. Fair work principles is about creating a positive experience that benefits everyone. So, what is fair work? The concept of fair work may not be familiar to all employers, which is why the Fair Work Convention in 2016 set up a helpful framework explaining the dimensions of fair work: effective voice, opportunity, security, fulfillment, and respect, and how they can be achieved. Fair work aims to balance the rights and responsibilities of employers and workers and generates mutual benefits for individuals, organizations, and society, such as increased participation in work, improved productivity in the workplace, wider distribution of wealth within communities. So, the five key principles within the Fair Work framework are effective voice, opportunity, security, fulfillment, and respect. Effective voice is much more than just giving a channel of communication available within workplaces. It is about offering a safe environment where dialogue and challenges are dealt with constructively and where workers' views are listened to and can make a difference. Opportunity allows people to access and progress in work and employment and is a crucial dimension of fair work. Meeting legal obligations by ensuring equal access to work and equal opportunities in work sets a minimum floor for fair work. Security of employment, work, and income are important foundations of a successful life. Predictability of working time is often a component of secure working arrangements. Fulfillment. Workers benefit from engaging in a fulfilling work, using and developing their skills, having some control over their work, taking part in appropriately challenging work, and taking up opportunities for personal growth and career advancement. Fair work is work in which people are respected and treated respectfully, whatever their role and status. Respect at work is a two-way process between employers and employees and is valued for recognizing the reciprocity of the employment relationship. So, what is happening in an evolving, challenging, changing market? Well, the first thing is that SMEs are facing recruitment challenges. And the top key challenges in recruitment is A, the recruitment costs are very high. B, attracting the right candidates. C, attracting recruitment process inefficiencies. How do we get rid of them or minimize them? And fourth is looking at lower brand visibility. With regards to high recruitment costs, simply advertising a job position could cost business upwards of £3,000. Small businesses might also struggle to offer the pay grades that bigger businesses with higher revenue can offer their employees. This makes it difficult to hire someone with the right skill level to boost the business as the funds aren't there. So using social media and local networking events can be good opportunities to meet new skilled workers, as well as employing programs like apprenticeship programs. How do you attract the right candidates? Only market tailor-made job descriptions which are tailored to the requirements of the organization. And when providing feedback, make sure the feedback is specific. Recruitment process inefficiency. If the business doesn't have the right processes in place during the recruitment phase, staff can suffer with longer recruitment times and higher workloads. This can put a strain on the whole business. So, what is the need for it? Well, the need for it is this untapped talent pool within the STEM sector. So, by not looking at alternative pathways to recruitment, we are closing off those opportunities. There's also new initiatives and funding available to upskill and reskill within the current workforce. The workplace is changing with more remote working options available, which can help extend geographical reach as well, which means people have more opportunities and there can be more flexibility offered by employers. The rise of social media in recruitment can help SMEs gain visibility at significantly lower costs. And the development of new recruitment channels can not only support underrepresented groups to find employment, but SMEs can stand out as well. Referring back to the McKinsey research mentioned earlier, this research looked at what could prevent gender or racial minorities to pursue particular roles. And one of the key findings was that it indicated that there was a perceived lack of inclusion within organizations that were applying for those roles, and the candidates did not feel keen on applying for that reason. In addition to that, respondents of all demographics have said that they have chosen not to pursue a job because of perceived lack of inclusion. So it goes beyond people who feel that they are part of a protected characteristic. Now, if you look at the table there, you can see that women overall, the significantly women and LGBTQ plus respondents would consider inclusive practices as a defining criteria for applying or not. So the biggest mistake organizations can make today is not acknowledging that the market is changing. The demand on how these things are to be done are changing. And the implications for businesses is that they need to rethink their recruitment and talent attraction and retention strategy. And they also need to create an inclusive culture within their organization to ensure that the talent continues and flourishes. We are now towards the end of the first video. In the next video, we look closer at inclusive recruitment practices and the steps you can take today to support attraction and recruitment of a diverse pool of talents. We'll be covering writing an inclusive and attractive job description, knowing where to advertise job adverts, and best practices when shortlisting and interviewing candidates. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video.